I never thought the day would come when I'd be left behind like this, but here I am, alone and forgotten. My heart aches as I sit in this sterile, cold room. I look out the window and see the world going by, a world that's moving on without me, and it feels like a cruel joke. My son, David, the one I raised with all my love and sacrifice, has left me here in this place, like an old relic no one cares about anymore. He promised me, time and again, that he'd never let me down. But now, as I sit here, wondering where he is, I realize that promises don't mean a thing when it's all too easy to walk away. Before I tell you what happened next, would you do me a favor? Hit that subscribe button, turn on the little bell, and let me know where you're watching from. It really helps us know where these stories are reaching. My name is Evelyn, and I'm 68 years old. I've lived a full life, but not without its share of heartaches. My son, David, was my world. I raised him alone after his father passed when he was just a boy. I gave him everything, my time, my energy, my love. I was his world, too. Or so I thought. Now, I wonder if I was just a stepping stone, a mother to be used until he no longer needed me. The moment he walked out the door with his wife, leaving me in this nursing home, was the moment everything changed. He promised me he'd be back, but that was 6 months ago. I've been left in the shadows, all alone, questioning everything I ever believed in. This isn't just a story of a mother's heartbreak. It's a story of betrayal, of a love so deep that it allowed me to ignore the signs, to forgive every mistake, every failure. I sit here now, in this lonely room, reflecting on what I've endured for my son. The life I gave him, the sacrifices I made. What was it all for? And as I sift through the memories, I begin to uncover the ugly truths that have been hiding in plain sight for far too long. But there's more to this story. The story doesn't end here, and I'm going to make sure you hear the truth. Would you stick around and listen, because you won't believe what happened next? He stood in the doorway, his suitcase in hand, eyes darting around the room as if looking for an excuse to leave. The silence between us was deafening. I tried to smile, tried to be strong, but my heart was breaking. "I'll be back soon, Mom," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "We'll get everything sorted. Don't worry." I remember that moment so clearly. It feels like yesterday, but it's been 6 months now. 6 months of unanswered calls, ignored texts, and empty promises. I sit here, in this sterile nursing home, and wonder what happened to the little boy who used to hold my hand and say, "I'll never leave you, Mom." The little boy who, even when life was hard, would crawl into my lap for comfort. What happened to him? Did he forget all the sacrifices I made for him? Or worse, did he ever care? Before I go on, let me ask you one more thing. If you're still with me, would you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next? It means the world to me, truly. I'm Evelyn, and if you're just joining me now, I need you to understand something about me. I'm not a stranger to hardship. I've weathered my fair share of storms. My husband passed when David was only 6, and from that moment on, I became both mother and father to him. I worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs, just to make sure he had everything he needed. I didn't want him to grow up feeling the absence of a father. I poured everything into him, my energy, my love, my very soul. But somewhere along the way, I think I lost myself. I think I became too caught up in giving him everything he wanted, that I forgot about what I needed. And now, here I am, forgotten. The worst part isn't just the abandonment. It's the silence that follows. No phone calls, no visits, not even a card. I sit in this room, staring at the clock, counting the minutes, waiting for him to come through that door and tell me it was all a mistake. But he never does. I've learned something in these 6 months. When someone can walk away that easily, it means they were never really there in the first place. It means the love was one-sided. And that realization stings more than anything, but I won't sit here quietly any longer. I won't be ignored, not by him, not by anyone. Something's been gnawing at me, the feeling that there's more to his disappearance than just being too busy or too tired. And I'm going to find out what that is. If it takes every ounce of energy I have left, I'll uncover the truth. Because no one, not even my own son, gets to leave me like this. Not without consequences. The real question is, what will I do when I find out the truth? I dug through the old photo album this morning. You know, the one with the cracked leather cover, the one that holds all the memories of a time when David's laughter filled the house. As I flipped through the pages, I saw the little boy he used to be, bright-eyed, full of wonder, and always right by my side. There's a picture of him at his high school graduation, standing tall in his cap and gown, smiling with that goofy grin of his. I can still hear his voice in my head, "I'm going to make you proud, Mom. I'll never forget what you did for me." That's what he told me, right before he left for college. I believed him. I believed every word. I've been sitting in this chair, in this sterile room, for hours now, just thinking. Thinking about the promises he made, the way he looked me in the eyes and swore he'd never leave me. It's hard to believe that same boy, the one who couldn't fall asleep without me sitting by his bedside, is the one who walked out that door 6 months ago, without so much as a backward glance. That boy is gone, replaced by someone I don't even recognize. And I don't know what hurts more, the fact that he left or that I'm just now realizing it's not the first time he's failed me. Before I continue, I need to ask you a favor. If you're still here with me, would you do me the kindness of hitting that subscribe button? It means more to me than you know. I've spent my whole life giving. I gave David everything, my time, my love, my energy. Even when I was tired, even when I was at my lowest, I always put him first. And I never once asked for anything in return. But what am I supposed to do when that love is thrown back in my face like yesterday's news? My son, the one I sacrificed everything for, left me here, to rot away in this place like some kind of burden. He doesn't call, doesn't check in. I'm just a distant memory to him now. As I sit here, I can't help but wonder what went wrong. What happened to the boy who needed me, the one who cried on my shoulder when things got tough? When did he stop seeing me as a mother and start seeing me as an inconvenience? I know life isn't always fair, but this feels like more than just the passage of time. This feels like a betrayal of the highest order, but I'm done feeling sorry for myself. I may be sitting here, alone, but I'm not broken. Something inside me is still fighting. And it's time I started fighting back. I can't just sit here and wait for David to come to his senses. I need answers. I need to know why he did this to me. So, I'm going to start looking for those answers, no matter where they take me. And believe me, I've learned that when you go looking for the truth, you always find more than you bargained for. But what if I uncover something darker than I'm prepared for? What if the truth is far worse than anything I could have imagined? That's a risk I'll have to take. Because I won't be left in the dark any longer. I picked up the dusty box of old photos today. It's been sitting in the corner of my closet for years, just waiting to be opened. I didn't want to look at them, not yet, but something pulled me to it. The memories, they're all in there, the days when David was just a boy, his small hands wrapped around my finger, looking up at me with trust in his eyes. I don't know what I was expecting to find in that box. Maybe a piece of him, the one I thought I knew. The boy who promised me he'd never leave, the boy who swore he'd always take care of me, but instead, all I found was a stark reminder of the distance between us now. There's a photo from his high school graduation, his bright smile as wide as the ocean. He looked so proud, so full of hope. "I'll always make you proud, Mom," he said then, his voice bubbling with optimism. I believed him. I believed every word, like a fool. Now, as I sit in this quiet room, I can't help but wonder, what happened to that boy? What happened to the man I thought he would become? I can't help myself. I need you to know how much this means to me. If you're still with me, please hit that subscribe button. I need to know there's someone else out there who understands. I've spent my life, my very soul, giving to David. Everything I had, I poured into him. Late nights, long days, sacrifices I didn't even realize I was making. But all that was nothing compared to what I've lost now. When he walked out that door, when he left me in this place, it felt like I'd been erased from his life entirely. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it, wondering what I did wrong. Did I not raise him right? Did I give too much? I've spent so many nights alone, asking myself these questions, trying to figure out where I went wrong, but something inside me is shifting. I've been living in silence for so long, letting this betrayal sit heavy on my chest. But now I'm done. I can't just wait around for him to come to his senses. I need answers, and I'm going to find them, even if it means digging up old wounds. So, I start going through the paperwork he left behind. The receipts, the legal documents, the old notes, anything that might tell me why he would do something like this. And then, in the middle of the pile, I find it. A letter. It's from David's father. My late husband's handwriting, though faint now with time. I don't know why I didn't notice it before. It's a piece of the past, a fragment of a time when David was still a boy, still a son. The letter is short, but the words hit me like a freight train. Take care of him, my husband had written. You'll need to be strong. He'll need you more than you think, and one day, you'll find that he's not the man you thought he was. I freeze, the words echoing in my mind. What did that mean? What was my husband trying to tell me? My heart sinks as I realize something I didn't want to admit. Maybe David's always been this way. Maybe the boy I raised was never really the boy I thought he was. And now, he's gone, leaving me to deal with the mess he's made. But one thing is clear, I'm not going to let him get away with it. Not this time. I've been silent long enough. I'm going to make sure David understands that actions have consequences, even for a son. Even for him. So, I'll wait for him. And when he comes back, with his apologies and excuses, I'll be ready. Ready to show him that the price of betrayal is a debt that can't be easily paid. The real question now is, when will he come crawling back, and what will he expect from me then? And when he does, will I show him mercy, or will I make him face the consequences of his choices? It was late afternoon when I found it, tucked inside a drawer that I rarely opened anymore. It was a stack of papers, some official-looking documents, others just plain bills and letters from doctors. But one piece caught my eye. It was a notarized form, all official-like, with David's name on it, and his signature at the bottom. At first, I didn't understand what it meant. My hands trembled as I picked it up, the cold paper feeling like a knife between my fingers. I turned it over and started reading. The document was clear. David had signed away his responsibility to me. No warning, no explanation. Just a few lines in his name, as though it was as simple as signing a check. My heart pounded in my chest. How could he do this to me? How could he just cut me off like this, legally, and leave me stranded in this place? I was shaking now, my mind racing. I looked back at the form, scanning it again to make sure I hadn't missed something. But it was clear. He had arranged for my care here, yes, but not because he wanted to. No. It was because he had no intention of being responsible for me anymore. It was like I wasn't even his mother. Before I get into what happened next, I need to ask, if you're still with me, hit that subscribe button. I've come this far, and I'm not going to let it end here. Please, join me for the rest of this. The pain in my chest wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical. I felt the weight of his betrayal in every part of me. For years, I had worked myself to the bone for him. I made sure he had everything I never had growing up. I protected him from the world, kept him safe, made sure he knew he was loved. I did everything. And this? This was how he repaid me. A signed paper, an official declaration that I was no longer his problem. It was like being thrown out like an old coat, no longer needed. I thought back to the last conversation we had. David promised me it was only temporary. We'll figure this out, he'd said. But I should have known then, should have seen the way his eyes shifted when he spoke. There was something in the way he wouldn't look me in the eye, something that told me he was lying. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that my own son could do something like this. I was angry now, more than I had been in years. And I wasn't going to let this go. No, David needed to know that this wasn't going to slide. I had a right to know why he did this. Why he chose to abandon me, why he thought it was acceptable to sign away his responsibility as though I didn't matter. The next day, I pulled the letter I found earlier from David's father back out. I reread it, feeling my blood boil as I thought about the warning his father had given me. Maybe I hadn't wanted to face the truth before, but now, I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had raised a boy who was capable of doing this. And now, it was time for me to face him. I knew the confrontation was coming, and I wasn't sure if I was ready. But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I couldn't let him get away with this. And as I sat there, holding the papers in my hands, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let him walk away again. Not without facing the consequences. The question now was, when would he come? And when he did, what would I say to him? What would be enough to make him understand the weight of his actions? Would I even care by then? One thing was clear. David's return wasn't going to be as simple as he thought. I couldn't stop staring at that letter. My late husband's handwriting, so familiar, yet so foreign now. It had been years since I'd seen his words on paper, but there it was, in my hands. The faint ink, the curves of the letters, the love and care that I once cherished. And yet, as I read through the short note, a chill ran down my spine. "Take care of him," it read. "You'll need to be strong. He'll need you more than you think, and one day, you'll find that he's not the man you thought he was." The word stung, like a slap to the face. How did my husband know? How could he have known what David would become? A son who walked away from his own mother. I sat there for a long time, the letter in my hands, my thoughts swirling like a storm. The ink smudged with my tears as I read those words over and over. How could I not have seen this coming? Was I blind to the signs, or did I just refuse to believe them? I can't help but feel that something bigger was at play here. Before I continue, let me ask, if you're still here with me, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. You don't want to miss what happens next. I'd spent my life trying to make David into the man I always believed he could be. My husband's words echoed in my mind, "He's not the man you thought he was." The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Maybe David had always been this way, hiding behind promises and good intentions, but all the while building walls between us, walls I never saw until now. I'd been so focused on giving him the world, on making sure he had everything he needed, that I never stopped to ask what he was giving in return. And now? Now it was too late to go back. The damage had been done, but the letter wasn't just a reminder of what I'd lost. It was a warning. A warning that David was capable of more than I could have ever imagined. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't let him off the hook. Not anymore. I had to find out what drove him to abandon me, what made him think he could just walk away. And I wasn't going to stop until I knew the truth. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Confronting him, opening old wounds, digging into the past, it all felt like it would break me further. But I couldn't let the lies go unanswered. I couldn't let him leave me here to wither away without facing the consequences of his actions. What was I going to do when I saw him again? Would I scream at him, cry, or just walk away? Or would I finally find the strength to show him what true justice looks like? The only thing I knew for sure was that when David returned, there would be no turning back. This wasn't about forgiveness anymore. This was about holding him accountable for everything he'd done, and making sure he paid the price for the pain he caused. And whatever that price was, I was ready to collect. But what would happen when I finally got the answers? Would the truth set me free, or would it destroy everything I thought I knew about my son? I never thought it would come to this. There are moments, when I look at David's photo and I can almost feel the warmth of his little hand in mine, his soft voice calling me Mom in that way only a child could. It's the kind of love that fills you up, makes you think you'd do anything to protect that little soul. And I did. I did everything for him. I spent my entire life trying to give him the life he deserved. When his father passed, I promised him we'd be okay, that I'd always be there for him. And I was. Even when I was tired, when I was hurting, when the world seemed too much to bear, I was there for him. No matter what. I watched him grow up, fall in love, start his own life, and all the while, I stood by, always ready to lend a hand. But somewhere along the way, I became just another piece of the furniture. Someone to be put aside when it became inconvenient. I thought about calling him, begging him to come see me. But I realized, as the days dragged on, that I wasn't just calling for a visit, I was calling for something more. I wanted him to understand. I wanted him to remember the promises he made, the love he claimed to have for me. But what was the point? If he could leave me here, abandoned in this lonely place, with no explanation, no apology, then what good was my love to him? Before I continue, please, if you're still with me, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. This story isn't over, and you don't want to miss the next chapter. I've always prided myself on being strong. A mother who could take on the world for her child. But now? Now I'm not so sure. It's one thing to raise a child with all your heart. It's another thing to have that child rip your heart out when they think you're no longer useful to them. I thought I knew David. I thought I knew who he was, deep down. But now, I'm not so sure. What happened to the boy who swore he'd always take care of me? What happened to the man who promised me I wouldn't be alone in my old age? I sit here now, in this quiet room, the sound of my own breathing the only thing that keeps me company. And I can't help but feel this growing emptiness, like a hole that's only getting deeper the longer I sit in silence. I can't keep pretending that everything's fine. I can't keep acting like this is just a phase, that David will come around eventually. He won't. He's gone. And I'm left with the wreckage of a love I gave too freely, a love that now feels like a mistake, but as much as it hurts, as much as I want to curl up and cry, I can't let this be the end of my story. I can't let David think he's won. No, he may have walked away, but I'm not going to let him get away with it. Not without facing the consequences of what he's done. I won't beg for his love. I won't chase him down. Instead, I'm going to take control of my life again. It's time for him to see that actions have consequences, and I'm going to make sure he understands that before it's too late. But what will happen when he returns? Will he expect me to just forgive him and move on? Will he even realize what he's done? Or will he try to manipulate me into thinking it was all just a mistake? The truth is, I don't know what's going to happen next. But I do know one thing: when he comes back, he's going to face me. He's going to face the mother he abandoned. And he won't like what he finds. It was a rainy morning when I first saw him again. The kind of day when the sky's so gray it feels like the world's holding its breath. I hadn't expected it. After months of silence, I thought I'd never hear from him again. But there he was, standing at the door of my room, looking almost out of place in his crisp suit, as though he'd just walked out of some business meeting. His eyes were nervous, darting around the room, but he didn't speak. "Not at first, Mom," he said after a long pause, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know where to start. I could hear the hesitation in his voice, but I wasn't about to make this easy for him. I hadn't heard from him in months, not a call, not a text. He had promised me, again and again, that this was only temporary, that things would get better. But the lies had piled up, and now I was looking at him, standing there like nothing had happened. The nerve of him. I didn't speak at first. I just looked at him. I looked at the man who had once been my world, the boy who had sworn he'd never leave me, and I thought to myself, how could you do this to me? How could you just walk away without a second thought? Why, David? I finally asked, my voice trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of all the years of love I had given him. Why did you leave me? Why did you sign that paper? Why did you let me sit here, waiting for a son who never came? The tears burned in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I had cried enough. Before I go on, please, I need you to hit that subscribe button and stay with me. What happens next is more than just a conversation, it's about to change everything. David shifted uncomfortably in the doorway, his hands clasped in front of him. I could see the guilt written all over his face, but guilt wasn't enough. Guilt didn't make up for the months of pain, the silence, the broken promises. Guilt didn't get me back the years I had sacrificed for him. I'm sorry, Mom, he finally said, his voice cracking. I should have done better. I should have been there for you. But his words felt empty, hollow, like he was saying what he thought I wanted to hear, not what he truly felt. I had spent my whole life taking care of him, putting his needs above my own, and now he expected me to believe that an apology would make it all better? I wasn't buying it. Sorry doesn't fix this, I said, my voice steady, but firm. Sorry doesn't bring back the time you took from me. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you abandoned your mother when she needed you the most. There was silence between us, the kind that fills a room with tension. I could see the regret in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. He wasn't just going to walk in here and make everything okay with a few words. Not this time. I know I failed you, Mom, David said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to make it right. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt a flicker of something deep inside me, something I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just the remnants of the love I once had for him. But I wasn't ready to forgive him yet. Not until he understood the full weight of what he'd done. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, David, I said quietly. But I'm going to make sure you never forget what you've done. I won't be your doormat. I won't be someone you can walk all over and come back when it suits you. He nodded, a tear slipping down his cheek. But his tears weren't enough. Not yet. The question lingered in the air, heavy between us. Could he make it right? Could he prove to me that he wasn't the man I feared he had become? Would I ever trust him again? But more importantly, would I ever be able to let go of the pain? Would I let him back in after all he had done? The next step wasn't clear. But when he walked through that door, he opened more than just the physical space. He opened the door to a reckoning. And I wasn't going to make it easy for him. I wasn't going to let him off the hook just because he showed up. Not after everything. What was going to happen next? Was this visit the beginning of a long road to healing, or was it just another round of empty words? Only time would tell. And for David, time was running out. David's apology, though sincere, felt like a stone being tossed into a deep, still lake. The ripples were there, but they didn't reach the bottom. And every word he spoke only seemed to dig the hole a little deeper. I couldn't help but feel that his remorse, as much as it pained him, was born out of guilt, not love. Guilt for what he'd done. Guilt for what he'd left undone, and maybe, just maybe, guilt for seeing me as weak enough to forgive him. I waited for him to say more. To explain why he had really left me here in this cold, lonely place. But all I heard was the same thing over and over again: "I'm sorry, Mom." His eyes welled up with tears, but tears wouldn't fix this. They wouldn't heal the betrayal. They wouldn't bring back the years I lost, the loneliness I had to endure, or the days I spent wondering if I would ever see him again. Before I go on, I need you to stay with me. Please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. It's the turning point for both of us. "I don't need your tears, David," I finally said, my voice cutting through the tension. "I need the truth. The whole truth. Why did you really leave me here? Was I that easy to forget?" David's face fell. His eyes flickered with a mixture of guilt and something else, something darker. It took him a moment to speak, and when he did, I could see the cracks in his armor, the cracks I hadn't noticed before. "I didn't want to do it, Mom," he whispered. "I didn't want to leave you here, but I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle seeing you like this. You were fading away, and I couldn't cope with it." I felt a coldness settle over me. The words, the way they were said, felt like a betrayal on top of the betrayal. He wasn't apologizing for abandoning me. He was justifying it. In his mind, I had become a burden, a responsibility he was too weak to bear. "You couldn't handle it?" I echoed, my voice shaking with disbelief. "I wasn't asking for the world, David. I was asking for a little love, a little attention. Is that so much to ask from your own mother? You left me here, like I was something you could just walk away from." David stood there, his back stiff, looking like a man who had been caught in a lie too deep to escape from. His silence spoke louder than his words ever could. He hadn't just left me. He had chosen to leave. He had chosen to turn his back on everything I had done for him, everything I had given him. But as the anger started to rise in my chest, something inside me told me to hold back, to let the truth unfold. Because the truth had a way of coming out, whether we were ready for it or not. "I know you think you're protecting yourself, David," I said slowly, my voice low but steady, "but you're not. You're protecting your own shame. You left me here because you couldn't face what you had done. And that's the real betrayal." I watched him wince, his eyes darting away from mine, as though the words stung him harder than I intended. And yet, in that moment, I realized something. He had already made his choice. He had already cast me aside. And now, no matter how much he regretted it, there was no going back. "I'm sorry," David whispered again. But this time, his voice was smaller, weaker. As though he was losing the strength to fight for my forgiveness. "I don't want your apology, David," I said firmly, the finality in my tone hanging in the air between us. "I want you to understand what you've done. I want you to feel the weight of your actions, the way you made me feel. Because you don't get to just walk away and expect everything to be okay when you come back. That's not how this works." David opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand, stopping him. "No. I'm done listening to empty words. You don't get to fix this with a couple of tears and a sorry. Not anymore." The room was quiet then. And for the first time, I could see it in his eyes: regret, yes. But also the realization that it was too late. The damage had been done. He had abandoned me when I needed him most, and no amount of regret would change that. "Goodbye, David," I said quietly. "I'll be fine. You won't need to come back. Not for me." And just like that, the son I had spent my life raising, the son I had loved more than life itself, turned and walked away. And this time, I didn't try to stop him, but as I sat there, alone once more, I realized something powerful. I didn't need him anymore. I had spent so many years depending on his love, his attention, his care, but now, I was free. Free from the shackles of his betrayal, free from the false hope that he would change. The truth had set me free, and I was finally ready to move on. What would happen next? Would David ever understand the weight of his actions? And would I ever be able to truly forgive him? The answer, I wasn't sure. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to wait for him to come back and make things right. I was going to make things right for myself. The question now was, what would my life look like without him? The days after David left were quiet, almost unnervingly so. There was no more pretending, no more hoping for change. The air in my room felt different, lighter, but it was a weight I couldn't quite put down. It was the weight of closure. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't waiting for David's apology, his redemption, or his return. I was done waiting for someone who would never truly understand the magnitude of what he had done. I spent my mornings by the window, watching the rain come and go, a constant reminder of how things in life could change so quickly. The world kept turning, and I, too, needed to move forward. I didn't need David anymore. I had everything I needed right here within me. My strength, my resilience, my dignity. These were the things I had built over a lifetime of giving, and now, it was time to take them back. I had spent so many years pouring into others, but it had all been one-sided. The truth had hit me like a ton of bricks. No one else could fill me up. Not David, not anyone. If I wanted to be whole again, I had to do it myself. Before I go on, if you've stuck with me this far, I have to ask, please hit that subscribe button. The story may be winding down, but the lessons I've learned aren't over yet. I found myself walking through the halls of this nursing home, noticing the small things I'd once overlooked. The soft carpet, the gentle hum of the lights above, the smell of fresh flowers in the lobby. These things didn't belong to David or anyone else, they belonged to me. And for the first time, I realized something: this place wasn't my prison. It was just a chapter. A place I had been placed in by circumstance, but not by choice. I had my health, my memories, and my purpose. And now, I was going to live for myself. No more waiting. No more pretending that David would come back and fix everything. If I was going to heal, it was going to be because I chose to heal, not because someone else asked me to. The nurse, a sweet woman named Sarah, came in later that afternoon. She had been helping me for months now, and I had grown fond of her gentle kindness. "How are you doing today, Evelyn?" she asked, as she checked my vitals. "I'm doing well," I said, looking her in the eyes. "Better than I've been in a long time." She smiled warmly, as though she could see something had shifted in me. And maybe, just maybe, she had. I looked at my reflection in the mirror that evening, something I hadn't done in a while. The woman staring back at me wasn't the one who had been abandoned. She wasn't the one who had been waiting in silence. She was someone else, someone strong, someone who had endured far more than most people would ever understand. And now, she was free. David's absence had left a scar, but it had also cleared a path. A path where I no longer had to depend on anyone else to make me feel valued. I could do that for myself now, but what of forgiveness? Could I forgive him? The question lingered, but it didn't carry the same weight as before. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed David. It was something I owed myself. And for the first time in years, I felt the peace I'd been searching for. I wasn't ready to forget what he'd done. I didn't think I ever would be. But I didn't need to hold on to the pain anymore. The past was the past. And the future? It was mine to shape. As I sat down by the window once more, the sky cleared and the first rays of the sun broke through the clouds. It felt like a sign. The world was still turning, and so was I. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone else to change. I was changing. And in that change, I found my freedom. What comes next? I'm not sure. But I do know one thing: I've lived through the worst, and I'm still standing. David will always be a part of my story, but he no longer holds the pen. I do, and that's all I need. The end? No, this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. David never returned after that day. Not in the way I thought he would, anyway. I suppose a part of me expected him to come back, to make things right, to beg for forgiveness like so many sons do in the stories we read. But that never happened. And I've come to understand that it never will. For a long time, I couldn't make sense of it all. I would replay the moments, the conversations, the years spent together in my mind, trying to find the point where everything went wrong. But in the end, I had to let go of that, too. There are things in life that simply don't make sense, and sometimes, the most important thing we can do is accept them and move on. Holding on to the pain doesn't make the hurt go away. It only drags us down. Before I go further, let me ask one last time, please hit that subscribe button if you're still with me. This journey has been long, but the lessons I've learned are worth sharing. In the weeks that followed, I settled into a new routine. I spent my days reading, writing letters I would never send, and taking long walks around the garden. I began to realize that the world didn't stop just because David walked away. I had spent so many years believing that my life was tied to him, that my happiness depended on his love and approval. But I was wrong. I remember the first time I woke up and didn't feel the weight of his absence pressing down on me. I woke up, looked out the window, and smiled. The birds were singing, the sun was rising, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The pain didn't vanish, not entirely, but it didn't define me anymore. David had given me one final gift, the chance to rediscover myself. And that, more than anything, was worth everything. I think back to the lessons my mother taught me when I was young. She always said, don't ever let anyone take your power. Not a man, not anyone. I spent years giving away my power, thinking that my love for David was enough to make him change, enough to fix the things that were broken between us. But I've learned that love isn't enough to heal wounds that go too deep. Change comes from within, not from someone else. So, what have I learned through all of this? That life is a journey, full of twists and turns, and that sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But even then, we have to keep moving forward. We have to heal, not for them, but for ourselves. David's actions may have broken me for a time, but they also gave me the strength to rebuild. I'm not the same woman I was before he left. I'm stronger, wiser, and more at peace with who I am. I've learned that I don't need anyone to define my worth. I don't need anyone to complete me. I am complete on my own, and to you, my dear friend, wherever you are, if you're feeling lost, abandoned, or betrayed, know this, you are not alone. You have the strength inside you to heal, to rise above the pain, and to reclaim your dignity. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. Because, in the end, the only person you can truly depend on is yourself. David may never understand the full weight of what he did, but I found peace in knowing that I don't need him to. I've learned the hardest lesson of all, that forgiveness isn't for the other person. It's for you. And once you've forgiven, you can move forward with your head held high, free from the chains of the past. So, what's next for me? I don't know. But for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of it. Whatever comes, I'm ready. Because now, I'm living for me. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I hope that, in some small way, it helped you see that no matter how deep the pain, there's always a way to heal. Always. And as for me? Well, I'll keep living. And I'll keep learning. Because life isn't over, it's just begun.